Hello, Stephen Watson here at Someday Farm, and just wanted to talk a little bit about a expectation, a query, a demand, a promise that students believe that they are due in the study of these arts, and that is flow, smoothness, grace, fluidity in their practice. And so quite often, I'd say with great regularity, a newer student to the art will put in some time, and that means money and practice and, class time and note-taking and review and all that. And, they've learned a bunch of moves. And then they find themselves comparing themselves to what they've seen in the movies, what they've seen on YouTube, what they've seen from their classmates, what they've seen from their teacher, and they feel that they don't measure up in terms of flow, fluidity, grace, smoothness, and they express their demand for flow. They express their expectation of flow. They express their desire for it. And quite often what ends up happening is they start trying to install flow or fluidity in their practice. So without my direction, they'll begin to emphasize fluidity and flow. And they're usually pretty happy with themselves. Look what I decided to work on. and then I'll kind of say, okay, well, I need to give you this talk then, right? And that is that it is my belief, it is my understanding, it has been my apprehension of these arts that flow is not something that we do. It is not something that we try and express. Rather, it is the result of having done, let's say, innumerable other things well. And so it is the result of having worked on all these other things, the things that your teacher has been telling you to work on, the things that are written in the classics, the things that your elder sisters and brothers in the arts have been working on, and therefore evince fluidity and flow and smoothness, grace. So it's my view that these arts are largely about applying the consciousness towards the collection and coalescence and circulation of intentions and energies of the body, the structures and tissues of the body, meld with the mind for some result, punching the guy or blocking the thing or, healing, the liver with Qigong or whatever we're doing. And in order to learn that, we have to learn that at this step, our mind is here. At this step, our mind is here. At this step, our mind is here. At this step, our mind is in this way and moving to here. At this step, our mind is aware of this and intending this and heading here, having come from here, or whatever. And as we practice, as we put our time in, we get more details on, how the mind is, where the mind is, how often the mind is, where the mind goes. And as such, we can end up with a more detailed, a more smooth path of the being's expression. If, for example, we could picture that I have a circle here, I have a ball here, so I guess on the screen it's a circle instead of a sphere. if we were to look at 4 points on, the circumference, right? And then you just saw those 4 points, you would imagine that I had drawn a square, right? If I had just drawn 3 and you just saw 3 points and without the ball, you would say, well, that's a triangle. Even though those 3 points can exist on the circle and those 4 points can exist on a circle. Similarly, we can add points and have a pentagon. We can add points and have some other, more complex shape. And as we add more points, we get closer and closer to an actual circle. And in fact, it gets easier and easier to only be able to imagine a circle. If I had 14 million points, like I don't think that's any kind of trapezoidal anything. I mean, you're drawing a circle there and it's a pretty darn good one. In other words, as we add more data points, we get smoother, we get more organic, we get more curved and less this way. So generally, as we're learning these things, we learn that think this, do this, go here, inhale this point, punch the guy here, come back to ready position here, zhong ding now, pong over here. And it sort of is described in this sort of staccato waypoint kind of description. And it's much easier to experience that and relate to it as though it's sort of ragged or edged or sharp or square. And maybe it is. But as we get more familiar with that, we begin to sort of round the bases, right? So we don't have a diagonal of the bases, we have a little bit more of a oval that gets run. So rather than somebody saying, well, I want the smoothness, which I think we all do, right? That meshes with Taoism best. It matches our valuing of the art. It is gentlest on the body. It looks coolest. It's probably more fun that way. I think that it's not something that we add or that we do or that we even emphasize. I think that what happens is that if we have a checklist, so all those data points, do this, then do that, then do this, move the mind here, then do this, and then coordinate these 2 things, and then do that. If we keep the checklist and we are consistently and confidently and comfortably practicing that checklist, right? If we have the checklist and we're consistently and confidently and comfortably practicing that checklist, then one of the results is that we are more graceful, we flow better, we're more fluid, things are more smooth. Perhaps that's because they're more smooth in the mind, and so they become more smooth in the body. Maybe as they become more smooth in the body, the mind smooths and softens. Maybe they just are mutually rising. I don't know. So the flow comes not from abandoning the checklist, but from consistently and confidently and comfortably practicing the checklist. So consistent, confident, but comfortably. I've seen people consistently and confidently practice a checklist, but they're sort of battling it. They're sort of anxious about it. They're sort of antagonistic towards it, their relationship. So I'd like to see a comfort with that checklist, right? So on a related note, I would say that consistency is what leads to competence. Consistency is what leads to competence. Consistency leads to competence. Competence leads to confidence. Therefore, consistency leads to competence, which leads to confidence. If one is to have confidence, one must begin with consistency. Deserved confidence exists only on the far side of the mountain range of practice. Not just confidence, right? But objectively deserved confidence. Deserved confidence exists only on the far side of the mountain of practice or mountain range. Practice only bears her fruits with discipline. So, thank you for joining.